Good morning, everyone. It's great to have everybody here for Coffee with Jim and James. This is a very special day for me, James. I don't know if you know this. Before we bring Tal in, I want to tell a little story that I would not be here today on this podcast where I am had it not been for a lot of interaction or whatever from Tal in 2008. You want to hear more? I was in Minnesota Centerpoint operations, had the opportunity to come down to Houston with a group called Alternative Fuels, which was one of Tal's group. Tal at the time was VP over GETS, Gas Engineering and Technical Services. So half the company reported up to Tal. And I got to have the opportunity to relocate to Houston, started my career there. Turned into Mobile Energy Solutions, which led to me being more and more into CNG and LNG. And literally, Tal, I'm serious. Thank you, my friend.
So hold on, Tal. So this is your fault. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Well, when I first met Jim, I mean, look, this guy has a lot of, like myself, he has a lot of passion, and I needed somebody to come in and help jumpstart that whole side of the business. And Jim was he was a little reluctant about coming to Houston. I mean, look, the guy's from the Great White North. I mean, he was used to tromping around in snowshoes and whatnot. And he was like, what in the heck am I going to do down here in Houston? I said, hey man, get a pair of short pants, man, and learn how to barbecue. Learn how to barbecue. And as soon as he got that, I mean, he was a Texan after that. I mean, he's a natural Texan now.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
Well, I might be in Florida, but
Jim's welcome in Texas anytime. He's welcome in Texas anytime.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Tal, it's great to have you here today. Absolutely.
Well, welcome to the show, sir. Tal, do me a favor. We always start with an origin story, and I couldn't wait to hear yours.
Well, okay. So I'll go back a little bit so you'll understand a little bit of my background, and so you maybe understand the bias that is just built into me from the beginning. I mean, I grew up military, okay? So my dad did the whole Vietnam thing, and I moved around a lot as a kid, okay? So I had to learn how to make friends at an early age. I was the kid that went and knocked on doors. Do you have any kids that live here? So I was that guy. And so we moved around a lot, and we finally settled down in Northeast Texas, where my mother grew up, and that's where I spent my time. And, over the years, we'll kind of skip forward, but, one story I do want to tell you is I met my wife in the first grade. Really? I have known my wife since the first grade. And we just celebrated our 39th anniversary. So what a deal. Wow. And I got 2 great grandkids now. So it's been good, but I've known her that long. And to kind of fast forward, how did I end up in the gas industry? Yeah. Right? How did I end up in the gas industry? Well, I went to Texas A&M. I got convinced by a friend. I did not want to go to a large college. I wanted to go to a small college. I was going to go to Lamar University in Beaumont. I did not want to go to a big college. I visited Texas, and I'm like, that is not for me. But I had a friend of mine convince me, hey, you need to go by Texas A&M and look at that. You think you'd really like it. I ended up going there, and I was like, even though it's a big campus, it had a small feel, culture fit where I'd come from. I ended up going to Texas A&M, and back in the 80s, if you'll remember, back in the 80s, we're a little bit like where we are right now. I mean, the housing market was, we're not there yet, but back in the 80s, savings and loan debacle, you had the economy was in a bind. The jobs I had coming out of college was, okay, go to California or join the Navy. The Navy was like, hey, Tal, we'll pay for your last year of college if you'll be on a nuclear submarine for 6 months out of the year. And I said, well, I want to stay married to my wife, so I'm not going to do that. And I had this company called Intex back then in '85. Intex tell me, hey, come work for us. We're a gas utility. And, you know, I had these grand visions of I wanted to work for, you know, Lockheed or General Dynamics. I wanted to do real hardcore engineering. And I really didn't have an appreciation for that. But Intex gave me an opportunity to come to work in Texas. And it really forced me to think about what did I really want to do long term in my life? Did I really want to be in a cubicle doing engineering work my entire career? What did I really want to do? And Intex at that time offered me and said, hey, listen, we hire engineers for engineers, but we also hire you to develop into leaders. That's what we really want you to do long term, is be a leader. And I'm like, okay. Well, after about a couple of years I was into the job, it really kicked into me on what this really is. This business is not overly complicated when you look at one main and one service and one meter to one house and deliver energy. It's not that complicated. But when you try to do it 4 million times like we do, it's a big deal. And what I also came to an appreciation about was, if our industry, any gas company, any electric company, anybody delivering energy to society, if we don't do our job every day very well, things don't happen.
Yep.
This podcast does not happen.
Yep.
You know, people don't have jobs. People don't have phone service. People don't have, you know, lights. You know, they can't heat their water. They can't take care of their families. And so when I told you about the bias I had towards a military background and that sense of duty, that kind of kicked in and said, you know, I really like what we're about. I can come to work every day and feel good about what I do is contributing to the betterment of my local city, the state I live in, and the country I live in. And it gives us as a country a competitive advantage. And I found a lot of pride in that, you know, and so why have I stayed in the industry so long? That's why. I've had plenty of opportunities to move outside. But what I do is I just try to take the innovative thinking and creative thinking and scratch that engineering itch, you know, on my personal activities as well as at work, and stay grounded in what's important, and that's delivering safe and reliable energy to our society. I'll say to our customers, but really it's to our society. So that maybe that gives you a little bit of background of what I'm about.
And it shows, and your passion shows.
Absolutely.
You know, Tal, the innovation, again, I think you're absolutely right that a lot of folks think of, oh, it's just a meter set, you know, it's just a line in the ground, but all the things that come about of that. And we see so much news these days where people are saying, oh, we can do everything with electric. And I personally, I like a diversified energy portfolio. I think there's a lot of different things that can happen. But to say I'd be wrong to say we could do everything electric, or I could be wrong saying we could do everything natural gas. We need to have that balance and all that. And I think getting back to it, Tal, you know, what's your thoughts on that with, you know, the diversity and a portfolio as the United States, if not even the world, you know, how we do need different energy sources?
Well, I don't want to get too political about some of the issues, but you understand that the way much of society is going and where some of the pressures are coming from the investor community is putting more and more pressure on carbon. Okay. But eventually people are going to have to come to the reality of physics. Okay. And understand that if we are growing as a country, if population is growing, energy needs are going up.
Yep.
So you are not going to solve this problem by being efficient alone. Efficiency is always important. I happen to be a conservationist. I don't consider myself an environmentalist. I consider myself a conservationist. I believe in good stewardship.
Yep.
And the point you made about having a diverse supply, that's good for a couple of reasons. It's good strategically for a country to be that way. It's good from a security perspective to have that. And I think a lot of people that make the arguments that we're going to completely electrify everything are ignoring that aspect as well as the economic aspect. There is no way that you are going to supplement the heating load in a place like Minnesota with electricity. The actual grid investment would drive electric rates through the roof.
Yep.
And we know that. And we also know that through physics, that using the energy at the source of consumption is the most efficient way to do it. Okay. And so therefore, natural gas is a natural solution for that particular problem. Now, around energy diversification, look, I am all for wind and solar. I have no issues with that. It should compete in the market of ideas and compete in the economic space to compete for that. Is it part of the solution? Absolutely, I think it's part of the solution. Does it meet our reliability issues? No. We cannot count on the wind blowing and the sun to come out. It just is not going to happen. And as you know, when we were at TGA, the theme when I was the chair there was, natural gas, the backbone of energy delivery. Okay, it is the backbone. And I would also argue that nuclear has a play in that space because it's very reliable, but it brings its own set of risk and concerns, societal concerns about how to deal with that, the disposal of it, if you will. So, but absolutely, the answer is in looking at all energy solutions, being a good conservationist and being a good steward of the resource. I don't care what the resource is: water, natural gas, oil, electricity. We should always be striving to be efficient. And that's in the best interest of society. It's in the best interest of customers.
And I really like
Tal,
to use that. Go ahead.
Hey, Jim, before you jump in, Tal, I just want to clarify something. How many years in the industry now for you?
37 next week.
Really?
So this isn't like a hot take from, somebody that just showed up. This is Tal Centers, 37 years in.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure people know.
That's a good clarifier. That's a very good clarifier. Tal,
I've had the honor of working in most of our jurisdictions at Centerpoint and its legacy companies. I've worked in rural areas. I've worked in large metropolitan areas. So
Amen.
I've seen a lot, good and bad.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm sure you've seen a lot. I want to hit on something that you hit on the TGA, the Texas Gas Association.
Yeah.
In the southern United States, the gas associations, state gas associations, are very big and very, take an active role in a lot of things. You've been very active. Centerpoint's been very active in the TGA for decades. I mean, ever since I moved down in 2008 and 2009, that's when I first got involved. What is your thoughts about associations, especially the TGA? You were chair last year, correct?
Absolutely. They vary by state to state. Certainly nationally, AGA and SGA have a huge presence. AGA is probably more postured to be in the form of a lobbyist, if you will, and connected. They do a lot of good work around standards, benchmarking, things of that nature. SGA has traditionally been positioned more of an educational organization, sales and marketing, does some great work in that space. TGA, like a local state gas association, those groups have been geared more of helping the municipal and small operators. So really, you have to have some of the larger operators step up and take a lead role in helping them out. As you know, many of the small cities and operators that we have, they don't have large staffs, they don't have environmental staffs, they don't have engineering staffs, and they don't have a good conduit to participate on a national or a regional level with SGA or AGA. They don't have the resources, they're not funded to do that. So state associations provide a good avenue for that. They've also been a good avenue to help raise awareness and help develop future leaders and future people into the industry. I think one of the biggest things that probably TGA has done an excellent job on is around the scholarship program that they help facilitate. Certainly they bring vendors in, new technology in to allow those small operators to see it. and to help get better, get ideas. But I think around the educational space, locally, as well as the developing leaders, it is probably one of its core benefits that it offers for the state. It doesn't typically act as a lobbyist for state legislation and things like that. Usually those are being worked through normal channels, through normal regulatory channels with the specific companies in the state. But they try to stay out of that political aspect of it.
Which is always good. But I want to hit on something. You hit on the scholarship, and I believe you're also in charge of the scholarship committee. Is that?
I'm not in charge of it, but I am on the board.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
But those are, correct me if I'm wrong, aren't there about $2,500 scholarships a year given out? Is that correct?
At least, yeah. And TGA's done such a good job of fundraising in that space that they're closely approaching the ability to actually have it set up as a trust and be able to self-fund itself, which is really a great accomplishment to be able to pull that off. So it takes the pressure off of having to have fundraising events all the time to have to fund that effort. So I think they've done a nice job there. Like I said, if I had to give AGA really big kudos on anything, or TGA would be on the scholarship fund.
Yeah.
They've really done a nice job with that.
And I tell you, and for the audience, going to the yearly O&M conference for the Texas Gas Association, a few times they brought in some of the recipients of the scholarships, so we actually get to meet them. And
they're impressive. Some of those, let's say some of them, all of them are very, very impressive. Some of their stories are even more inspirational than others. I had the pleasure of being able to do that one year, actually reviewing those.
Yeah.
And it's amazing when you sit there and read the write-ups on some of these kids and these young people who are coming up. I mean, very, very impressive. It actually gives you hope. It actually gives you hope for the future when you see that kind of talent coming up.
It's funny, Tal. It's funny.
You.
It's funny you say that. Coleman reviewed some of them this year, our CEO, and so I actually got to see some of them by proxy. And you're dead on. I was so impressed by the future that's coming with this group. It makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Tal, when we were at TGA, one thing we picked up on was just, and you'll laugh at this, especially after the pre-show, how passionate you are.
Is that a code word for something? Passionate?
Yeah.
But Tal, we joke about it, and you can let
that's
it.
That's a code word for opinionated and
loud. I said loud. Yeah, ball-headed. I'm also, I fall in that category too. But Tal, where does that stem from? You're a champion in natural gas. You're a champion of leadership, sitting at the table, getting involved. Tal, where does that stem from?
Well, I mean, fundamentally, I think it really fundamentally comes from my upbringing and my faith. Okay, I mean, that's where it comes from. I think just internally, I just inherently, I hate failure. Okay, I hate wasted motion. I like to get to the point and get results, but I also don't like to leave, dead bodies around. I don't believe in that. I do believe that teamwork and collaboration, more heads giving it thought, gives you better perspective and gives you a better solution. But for whatever reason, the good Lord blessed me with a mind and a desire to just solve problems.
Yes.
And once I have defined a problem, I don't know, it just kicks in that we've got to get it solved, and we've got to solve the problem. And I just am very results oriented. I'm just very results oriented. I don't try to approach that through an authoritative style, but more through a transparency and collaborative style. I've fundamentally learned over my career that if you're trying to get anybody to do anything or to get bought into anything, and I learned this, it probably took me about 15 years in my career to actually learn this, because as an engineer, you come out wanting to solve a problem. You just want to tell people how to do something and what to do, right? How and what. You just want to tell them how and what. You know, you got to do this way and do this way, and your problem solved. That works in the moment, but it doesn't work to sustain a process or to sustain a change. And what I've learned over the years, the important piece is to say why. Why first. Lead with why. Why are we even here? Why are we even having this conversation? Why is this even important? Because if people will buy into the why, if they acknowledge the why and agree with the why, the how and what and when and all that naturally flow after that, and they become facilitators of helping you achieve what it is you're trying to do. But if you lead with a how and a what, if you start saying what we're going to do is this, this, and this, and we need to do this and we need to do that, they don't have any context of why we're even having this conversation. So what they do is they resort back to what their why is. They haven't bought in. So I think that's where some of it comes from, is just I've learned over the years that that's a good approach to build teamwork and collaboration and to get buy-in and to come up with a better solution. And because I have passion for, for solving problems, it just comes out that way. I don't know how else to explain it, but it fundamentally probably came from my upbringing and in my faith. Taught at an early age about being somewhat self-reliant, not accepting failure, learn from failure, but not accept it. Okay. Be humble in your failures and your successes, but not be, don't become a victim. I mean, listen, I don't believe in labeling yourself as a victim. I mean, there bad things happen to good people and bad things happen in life. Yep. But you have to choose, you personally have to choose, are you going to let that dictate your outcomes or not? I think that's learned at an early stage of life. Some people learn it later, but I think it's something that has to be instilled early.
Two things. Oh, that sounded weird. Is that on my side or is that Tal?
That was probably me. I hit the table.
That's all right. That's all right. Two things. I just gonna for the audience, Tal, I'm gonna take you back real quick. January 2010. Does that ring a bell when the temperature in Houston went down to 25 degrees? Do you remember that?
It wasn't 2010.
Was it 9?
Well, the biggest cold weather that I remember in Houston was in 89 and 97. Okay. And then the coldest was last year. It got down pretty cold last year. Was last year. We had Winter Storm Uri come through. Well, when you went to January of 2010, I was in Minnesota in 2010.
Maybe
in 2010.
Maybe it was 2009. It was right after I moved down from Minnesota. And I was thinking, like you said, buy some golf shorts. You don't have winters here. And I remember you were still here. And that's when it was probably 2009. And I remember going down to the tower and we were running CNG trucks and you were, dressed in jeans. It was like a war room. You had maps out. You were looking at, we got to close this valve. We have to open that valve.
Right.
And you were getting people in the room saying, what do you think about going over here? And your style was very much, what do you think? How can we do it? Here's the problem. We don't have gas in the nice neighborhood over here because everybody's running their pool heaters. You remember that?
Yeah.
So anyways, you are a great leader.
Passionate leader.
Oh, he's back to that day. I remember, being a part of that and witnessing that. That's first thing. Second, I can't take it any longer. I keep looking at your screen and I see this beautiful car behind you. What is that? Is that, did you go to like a auto show? Is that like one of those things that are on auction for $1 million? What is that?
No, it's not $1 million. That's my car. It's a '69 Camaro. Originally was a Rally Sport, so it has the flip headlights on it. But I built it back as a resto mod. So it's got it looks generally stock from the outside, but there's nothing stock about that car. It's a 570 horsepower motor with a 5-speed and tricked out suspension. It's a nice ride, but I built that car myself. I did. It's easier to say what I didn't do on that car than it is to what I did do. I did not install the exhaust because I don't have a pipe bender at the house, and I did not put the headliner in. I had a upholstery shop do that, and I did not literally stitch the leather seats in it. I had an upholstery shop do that, but everything else I built, I painted, I assembled. It turned out nice. I mean, it was a nice build. It took me 2.5 years to build it. I got the car out of Des Moines, Iowa, and then had to fix a bunch of rust on it, and new sheet metal and whatnot. But
we've got to hook Tal up with Chris Isaacson.
Oh yeah, Chris loves
Chris restores old Broncos.
Yeah. Well, those are hot right now. Broncos are hot right now. I mean,
I'll send you
Broncos
some pictures
are
after this.
really hot right now.
Yeah, I'll have to pull some pictures and send your way. I'll hook y'all up. Y'all can geek out about it.
I just started a build on a 66 Chevelle, and just got the frame back from powder coat last week, and wow. I've got the body over in Brenham, Texas right now, getting dipped and getting all the rust and paint and stuff off of it before we start doing that one.
Chevelle, did you say 66 Chevelle? Chevelles are one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's a 66 Chevelle. We're gonna make a street cruiser out of that one.
This might be our #1 episode. Just because of this little portion. We may have to just edit this portion out.
Just keep it down to this?
I mean, yeah, we're just going to have to have a car show.
Yeah, I got involved in cars in high school, like most people. I worked after school, I worked in a body shop. So, I started off sweeping the floors and changing out windshields and doing inspections, and eventually ended up in the paint room learning how to do body work. And that resulted in me building race cars and learning how to do all that. And I pretty much did all that even after I was married up through my second, third year of college, race cars and worked on that stuff until, I got out of college, and then had to get reality kicked in, right?
Sounds like children.
Yeah, exactly. So, but no, I always had a passion. I want to go back and build another 69 Camaro. I guess you call that my midlife crisis. Some people have other midlife crises. Mine was go build a car.
That's a great.
I need a boat. That's what I'm going to shoot for. I think I'm going to go boat when I get to mine. It's coming quick. Coming in hot. Well, Tal, we always wrap up with one question to our guests, and today's no different. With you being so passionate about things, I'm really excited how this is going to turn out. So, one thing we do, Tal,
you need to set the expectations a little lower. Let's set them a little lower.
You could talk about cars, and we'd listen. I tell you what. But Tal, we live by something on the show, and that's that, when we leave this place, we can't take anything with us. And so our goal is to give it all away, whether that's, helping out our future generation of leaders or helping spread the gospel of whatever it might be. Yeah. Tal, you've got the floor. If you could give it all away, what's one thing you want to leave our audience with?
Look, a lot of people in today's society lack courage. And they allow fear to either cause them to give up their freedoms and liberties, or they cause fear to keep them from exhibiting the courage to make a change, make an influence. People just need to not do that. I mean, I believe that we're not given a spirit of fear, but of sound mind. And we need to stand on that as individuals and have the courage to self-evaluate ourselves, understand when we make mistakes, understand we're not perfect, understand that it's a process, and that we should never let fear, in other words, I don't care what you're doing in life, there's always points in your life. I don't care what it is. It could be something very simple or it could be something very complicated where you will be hesitant. And I would just tell people to test that hesitancy to see if fear is the motivation of the hesitancy. Now, if you're hesitating because you need more information or it's not clear, that's not fear. That's good common sense in getting the information. But a lot of times people are hesitant because they literally are fearful of either being challenged or avoiding confrontation, afraid of how they might be perceived. You need to test that, and if that is the motivation, you need to rebuke that, and you need to move on and understand. Now, like I said, I think, and that's, I'll be honest with you, that was a big point in my life that changed when I finally got to the point, because I know y'all joke around and say, hey, I've got passion and all these other kind of things. But when, coming from East Texas and growing up the way I did in a rural area, I literally could not speak in front of anybody more than 2 or 3 people at a time. I would not be capable of even doing what we're doing here today.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was fear. It was driven on fear. I had a fear of a microphone, fear of a TV, fear of speaking in front of anybody. And it wasn't until I came to that realization in 2 Timothy that fear was not coming from a good place. And once I realized that, I got past a lot of my issues as far as that goes. And I think that passion started pouring out more and more. So I would just encourage people to just not be driven by fear. Get the facts, understand what the issues are, make rational decisions. Emotions are good. We're all given emotions, and they're great, but we shouldn't make decisions on emotions. Those emotions are good precursors to ask questions, and they're good precursors to investigate, and good precursors to discover new things. But they shouldn't be the core of how we make decisions.
I love it. Jimmy, you heard it here first from Tal Centers.
That's
Be
awesome.
brave.
This has been great. Tal, thank you so much for joining us today. Absolutely.
Appreciate it, guys. Enjoy it.
All right.
Thanks for having me on today. Y'all have a great weekend.
You bet. All right. For those joining us, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Tal. I hope one day I get to ride in that car. Goodness gracious.
Come on
what
down.
a story.
Tickling my throat. I apologize. Tal, thanks.
Jim's falling apart. It's
get
like
a little emotional after that whole give it all away part.
Got a little choked up.
Anyways, thank you for joining us, everybody. Thank you, Tal, for joining us, and appreciate. We'll see you next time with Coffee with Jim and James. Y'all stay safe.